For generations, the Matterhorn has drawn thousands to its summit, promising adventure while hiding a deadly legacy. In 1865, a single snapped rope turned triumph into tragedy, shocking Europe and marking the start of one of the world's most dangerous obsessions. Why do climbers still risk everything for this iconic peak, and what price has history demanded for access? The answer begins on the descent. On July 14, 1865, 7 men stood atop the Matterhorn for the first time. Edward Whymper, the British artist and mountaineer, had chased this summit for years. Alongside him were Michel Croz, a Chamonix guide, Reverend Charles Hudson, Lord Francis Douglas, Douglas Haddo, and the father and son guides Peter Taugwalder. Their victory was brief. Less than an hour after reaching the top, they began the descent along the steep north face, roped together in a single line. Croz led, followed by Haddo, Hudson, Douglas, Old Taugwalder, Whymper, and young Taugwalder at the rear. The upper slopes were a mix of snow and rock, treacherous underfoot. Haddo, inexperienced and exhausted, lost his footing. He fell onto Croz, knocking him off balance. In seconds, Hudson and Douglas were pulled from the ridge. The rope connecting Douglas to Old Taugwalder was the weakest in the group, a reserve length, thinner and less robust than the others. Under the sudden strain, it snapped. 4 men tumbled more than 1,000 meters down the face, vanishing onto the glacier below. Whymper and the Taugwalders, braced against the rocks, held the remaining line and survived. The aftermath was immediate and raw. Whymper described the silence, the shock, the impossibility of what had just happened. 3 bodies were recovered days later. Lord Francis Douglas was never found. The rope, later examined in Zermatt, revealed frayed fibers and a fatal flaw. The Matterhorn's first descent ended not as a story of conquest, but as a warning written in loss. In the years after the 1865 disaster, Zermatt began to change. News of the tragedy brought more than just mourners and journalists. It drew curious travelers, aspiring climbers, and entrepreneurs eager to profit from the mountain's dark allure. Hotels and guest houses multiplied along the valley floor. By the 1870s, the number of visitors each year soared into the thousands, transforming the once remote village into a bustling gateway for alpinists. To accommodate this surge, infrastructure on the mountain itself began to take shape. In 1880, the Hörnli hut opened at 3,260 meters. Built of stone and timber, the hut offered shelter for climbers making early starts or seeking refuge from sudden storms. Marked routes and cairns soon traced the most popular lines, reducing the risk of getting lost in fog or darkness. Over time, fixed ropes appeared on the steepest passages, providing security for those with less experience. Guiding became a profession, not just a tradition. Local men who once tended sheep or hauled loads for tourists now led rope teams up the Hörnli Ridge. Their knowledge of the terrain and the dangers became a commodity. The new economy tied the village's fortunes to the mountain's reputation, for better or worse. With each improvement, the Matterhorn grew more accessible. But easier access brought new risk. The number of attempts rose each season, and with them, the number of accidents. The mountain was no longer the exclusive domain of elite climbers. Now, anyone with the means and the desire could try their luck, often underestimating what the mountain demanded. Most climbers aiming for the Matterhorn's summit follow the Hörnli Ridge, a route often described as the mountain's easiest line. The label is misleading. In Alpine grading, the Hörnli Ridge carries an AD rating, which stands for assez difficile, meaning fairly difficult. This is not a walk-up. The climb begins at 3,260 meters at the Hörnli hut and rises over 1,200 vertical meters to the summit, tracing a jagged spine of rock and snow. Climbers face a mix of exposed scrambling, short rock steps, and sections of fixed rope. The terrain demands constant attention. Slips can prove fatal, even in good weather. A typical summit day starts before dawn and stretches between 10 and 14 hours, testing both physical endurance and mental focus. The ridge narrows in places to little more than 1 meter wide, with sheer drops on either side. Altitude adds another layer of challenge. Thin air slows progress and magnifies fatigue. Even on the best days, the climb requires steady movement, careful footwork, and the discipline to turn back if conditions deteriorate. Despite improvements in equipment and route marking, the fundamentals remain unchanged since the first ascent. The Hörnli Ridge may be the most popular way up the Matterhorn, but it is not a safe shortcut. The mountain's reputation for difficulty is not based on legend. It is written into every meter of the route, from the hut to the summit cross. On a clear morning in late July, the Hörnli hut becomes a funnel for ambition. More than 100 climbers crowd the narrow dining hall, gulping down breakfast before the doors open around 4 a.m. When the signal comes, the crowd spills onto the ridge in a single, snaking line. Guides from Zermatt take the lead, setting a relentless pace. Their clients follow, then independent climbers, each group jostling for position. The ridge above is only wide enough for one team at a time in many places, forcing queues at the fixed ropes and exposed traverses. On the busiest days, as many as 130 climbers may leave the hut within half an hour. The result is a series of bottlenecks, where progress slows to a crawl. At the first fixed rope, climbers wait in the dark for their turn, sometimes for 20 minutes or more. Higher up, delays compound. By the time the sun rises, some teams are already an hour behind schedule. On average, crowding can add anywhere from 45 to 120 minutes to the ascent, enough to push even experienced climbers into the danger zone of the afternoon, when storms and rockfall become more likely. The psychological effect is just as real as the physical. Standing in line at 4,000 meters, surrounded by dozens of others, the pressure to keep moving grows. Some climbers push on, despite fatigue or hesitation, unwilling to lose their place. Others freeze up, the exposure amplified by the crowd at their back. In these moments, the mountain's risk is no longer just about skill or preparation. It becomes a question of timing, patience, and how well a person can manage the collective urgency that builds with every step upward. Every morning on the Hörnli Ridge, local guides move with purpose. Their approach is built around a single principle: the summit is optional, but returning alive is not. Veteran guides like Andreas Steindl track the clock as closely as they track the weather. If a team is not on pace to reach the summit by late morning, they turn back without debate. Strict turnaround times are enforced regardless of how close the summit appears. The risk of exhaustion and changing conditions increases with each passing hour. Guides know that most accidents happen during the descent, when fatigue sets in and decision-making falters. Their job is not just to lead, but to protect, sometimes from ambition itself. For them, the true measure of a successful climb is not a summit photo, but a safe return to the Hörnli hut. On the Matterhorn, time is the most important safety tool. Rescue pilots in Zermatt keep a close watch on the Matterhorn's upper slopes as afternoon approaches. Patterns repeat. Climbers stranded high above, slowed by exhaustion, or frozen by indecision. Call for help, just as weather turns. Even those with years of experience are not immune. Rescue logs show that late-day missions are now common, often triggered by delays at bottlenecks or a single missed step on the descent. But human error is no longer the only threat. Geologists tracking the Hörnli Ridge have documented a steady increase in rockfall, driven by permafrost melt. In June 2023, a pillar of rock collapsed after days of silent movement, weakened by thawing ice deep within the mountain. Guides and rescuers agree, objective hazards are rising. The Matterhorn's dangers are shifting. no longer just a test of skill, but of timing and luck against a mountain that is changing beneath every climber's feet. Every year, more climbers reach the Matterhorn, but so do the risks. As climate change and crowding alter the mountain, tradition alone won't guarantee safety. The line between adventure and tragedy is thinner than ever. Some summits still demand